What do you think you're worth reasonably? What are you helping the person that you're working with? Will the market bear the price? If you were to go talk to 100 people, how many of those people would think that your pricing is wildly inaccurate? If an iPhone was $25,000, most people wouldn't buy it. I understand what you're saying. The person that you look up to has probably been in business for 15 years and now they're able to do it. They didn't do it at your point in the journey. They did it later on. I don't want you to think that you have to charge X amount of dollars because everybody else is or everybody is telling you to. I think the best way is to build small, to start small. Podcast Growth Nation, welcome back to another episode of Podcast Growth University, where we talk all things podcasting all the time. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. It was episode number 133, One Thing Worth Practicing in 2025, and that was leaning into personality, leaning into authenticity, leaning into being you, which is unfortunately one of the hardest things in the world, especially when you're facing a public medium all the time. Today, for episode number 134, let's talk about pricing. So maybe you're thinking to yourself, Kev, I thought this was a podcast about podcasts. And it is. But my thought and my belief is, if you are a podcaster who wants to be successful in business, you most likely at some point are going to have a product or service, and you're going to have a price associated with that product and that service, right? You know my belief, you know my philosophy, you know how I feel about sponsorships and ads and stuff like that. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I just feel like there are better ways to turn your podcast into a business, and I think it would be hypocritical of me to talk about how you should be doing that when we have built our business with coaching and adding value to our community. So let's talk about pricing. Let's do it. One of my favorite things in the world to talk about, because I feel like I go in a different direction than a lot of the advice that I have been given. So I'll never forget, my business partner Alan and I were on a call with one of our coaches and mentors at the time, and he said, "Hey Alan, how much do you charge for coaching?" And Alan said, "I charge $147 per call." And our mentor essentially laughed at us and said, "If you're charging that little, you should just do it for free. I mean, you're already kind of doing it for free." And this mentor of ours had a service that they provided to clients. It was like a social media / content package. It was $1,000 a month, and he went and got 100 clients, and then they went out of business like 6 months later because they weren't able to do the things that they promised. Now, I'm not trying to speak negatively of this person. I genuinely care about this person, and they were good to us. That advice was not good, in my opinion. That was very bad advice, and the way it was delivered was kind of like a little bit negative. But this person ended up going out of business. So were they right about the feedback that they gave us when it comes to pricing, even though they went out of business and we're still in business? Well, that's up for debate, right? It's not that cut and dry. The point I'm trying to make is, it's very easy for somebody to say, "Hey, you should charge way more," or "Hey, you should charge way less." I did a thread on Instagram. Threads is an interesting world. And I threw up a post about, "Hey, if you could get this, and this done for your podcast for this price, is that something you'd be interested in?" And I had a lot of people say yes. And we got a few clients, a handful of clients from that, which was cool. That was awesome. But I also got a lot of negative pushback. And people were saying, "You can't charge that little, blah, blah, blah." And I said, well, if I want to coach for free, right? If somebody comes to us and they want us to produce their podcast, and I say, "You know what? This is how much it costs." Right? Let's say it starts at $297 a month. Some of the stuff we do starts at $297 a month. And I want to throw in a free coaching call every month. I want to coach the person. Why can't I do that? Why is my price too low? I don't understand. And I had a debate with someone over it. And I said, well, not everybody wants to be Mercedes. If everybody was Mercedes, a lot of people wouldn't have a car, because not everybody can afford a $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 vehicle. Not everybody can afford a Bentley or a Lamborghini or Ferrari that are multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. Most people can't afford that. Yes, it's a brand. Yes, they have their price. Yes, they have their quality, all that. But it's not for everyone. So why can't I decide that I would rather be the Toyota of podcast production as opposed to I charge $5,000 per client and I only want 5 clients a month? That's not the way I wanted to do it. So even that mindset of, well, you should charge way more because everybody else is charging way more and you're undercutting the industry. I think other people are a little bit greedy. I think there's a lot of people out there that are greedy. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody, but that's a point that I'm making. Okay, how does this all connect to pricing? Your pricing is kind of a stack of a few things, okay? It's what do you think you're worth reasonably, and we can go on both sides of that. What do you think you're worth? What are you helping the person that you're working with? And will the market bear the price? So what do you think you're worth? I'm not saying to internally say, well, I've never coached before, so I suck and I can never make money with this. That's not what I'm saying to do. What I am suggesting, though, is if you were to go get 5 clients for free, right? Again, let's say you have a self-improvement podcast. Anything, whatever it is. It could be a fitness podcast. And maybe you just don't have the reps of coaching. Let's say you have a fitness podcast and you're somebody who is a personal trainer. You've never coached people before online. This is a whole new thing. That's why you started the podcast. You wanted to help build a business. Sure. Yeah, you could say it's $200 an hour. Or you could say, this is something that I'm new to. This is something that I really want to get really good at. I am taking on 5 spots for 5 people for free. Then when you get your feet wet and you get your systems and you get your practice and you get results and you build relationships, then you can start charging. Now, it doesn't mean you suck. It doesn't mean you're not valuable. It doesn't mean any of that. All it means is right now you don't have the demand. That's all it means. I didn't charge anything in the beginning because I didn't have any demand. Imagine if I said, oh, if you want to listen to tomorrow's episode or next week's episode, it's $500. It wouldn't work. There's just no demand. But let's say some of the bigger podcasts, like let's say Joe Rogan or Call Her Daddy, if you had to pay $5 a month to listen to that, there's a lot of people that would do that. A lot of people would do that. Everybody? No. They would lose a massive amount of their followers, but some people would do it because they have enough demand. Okay? When it comes to what do you think you're worth, I think a lot of people like to overvalue themselves because they're trying to make it easier. So yeah, if I charge $1,000 and you charge $10,000, every client you get is 10 of my clients, and maybe you only need 1 client. But it's not easy getting a $10,000 client. Let me say that. It's not easy. There's a lot of people that will make fun of you for doing stuff for free. I did a speech last year for free. It cost me probably about $2,000 to do everything. And we got a client from that is at least a $25,000 client over the lifetime of that client. So I made $23,000 so far from that speech, quote unquote. Here's the thing. I never would have got it if I said, oh, I charge $5,000. Never would have happened. So sometimes it's that short-sightedness of, well, this is what I want now versus this is what I can get eventually. So here's my thought. Well, let's go into that. So one was, what do you think you're worth? The second one was, how much value can you bring to your client, right? If you work with me as a podcast producer, I can't charge you $10,000 because your time isn't worth $10,000 yet. So for you, it would just make sense for you to do it yourself. Now, let's say it takes you 10 hours to do your stuff every month, and you can make $50 an hour working with people. So you're essentially spending $500 of your own time If I have a package that's $300, that might work because I'm saving you time and I'm creating the opportunity for you to go work with more clients. That's different. But I can't just charge $10,000 because I want to charge $10,000. It's not worth $10,000 to most people. Now, if you're a gazillionaire and every hour of your time is worth $100,000, $10,000 a month is nothing. But that's not most people. Okay, so what is your service coaching? What is it worth? What is the person going to get? What is the benefit? And then the third thing is, what will the market bear? What does that mean? That means if you were to go talk to 100 people, how many of those people would think that your pricing is wildly inaccurate? So again, if an iPhone was $25,000, most people wouldn't buy it. It's like $1,200, $1,500, $1,600, but you can pay monthly. If you had to shell out $1,600 up front, most people wouldn't be able to do it. So that's why they have that option, right? That's the reason, because the market wouldn't bear $1,600 up front every time you needed a new phone necessarily. The market doesn't bear $300,000 cars for most people. That's why Lamborghinis and Aston Martins and those very, very expensive vehicles, you don't see them that often. They're never going to be the most popular, highest selling car because that's not the way it works. That's why Toyota is usually. Toyota, Honda, right? I think Toyota is probably maybe the highest in terms of numbers of cars sold. There's a reason, because the market will bear those prices. So those are really the three things. I think it's better to undershoot than overshoot. It's better to undershoot and charge less than you're worth because you get reps versus charging more than you're quote-unquote worth and then you get crickets. When you get reps, you get experience. When you get experience, you get knowledge. When you get knowledge, you get belief. When you get belief, you continue doing it. And when you do that, you get referrals. You get referrals. That's one of the best ways to grow your business is word of mouth through people who have experienced your products or services. But if your prices are too high, nobody's going to have experienced them. Now, are there people out there that should be charging $10,000? Yes. Yeah, if you're working with multi-millionaires, they probably assume that if you don't charge $10,000, you don't know what you're doing. But that's not going to be the vast majority of us, and that's okay. I've worked with some very successful people, and let me tell you, the pressure that comes with that sucks. It's not fun. It's not fun being on your phone all day or getting texts at 7 o'clock in the morning when you're at the gym and having to leave the gym to go put out fires. I know everybody wants, and not everybody, I know many people want high-ticket clients, but high-ticket clients usually create high-ticket problems. So that's something to think about. Okay, so how do you come up with your pricing? That is the question kind of today. Now, there's a lot of different ways. This isn't just coaching. Maybe this is a course. Maybe this is a book. Maybe this is a mastermind. Maybe this is how much you charge for speeches, all of that stuff. It depends on how much you want to do it, would be my answer. It depends. If you want to do a lot of coaching and you really, okay, let's do it this way. Mastery, impact, profitability. Which one is most important to you? If it's mastery, I would say the lower your price in the beginning, the better, because you will get a lot of practice. If it's impact, I would say the lower your price, the better, because you're going to get a lot of opportunity to speak to all sorts of people. If it's profitability, short term, then you're probably going to want to raise your prices. But it's going to be harder to get that type of person to pay, most likely, depending on what your audience is. So I would sit down and figure out which of those is most important to you, right? What is the mission statement of what you're doing? I want to have the biggest podcast production company on the planet. Eventually, that's really what I want. The way for me to do that is not to have the highest prices. That's just not realistic. That's not what I want to do either. Most podcasters can't afford $1,000 a month. They can't for podcast production because in the beginning, you're not making any money. It's just not sustainable. So, and that's another thing is what the market will bear is what's sustainable, right? That's a really big piece of it. So what is the mission statement of the company? Why are you doing what you're doing? You want to help people? You want to help a lot of people? Cool. You only want to do this for 10 years and then retire? That's a completely different game. Completely different. But the problem is, I know a lot of people start, they pick up a book that tells them they should be charging whatever, $10,000, hypothetically. And the truth of the matter is, most people shouldn't be. That just is the truth. I have worked with hundreds of podcasters.
Hey, I wanted to give my experience working with Kevin and the rest of the Next Level University team. It has been such a seamless relationship. He is so easy to work with, Kevin, and he gives you all the information you need, but doesn't overwhelm you. He's also meets you where you're at. So whatever you want to do, he'll make it work. And it's just, there's no stress, there's no drama. And everybody else that I've worked with has been patient with me because I am not technologically savvy. So they've been helpful and patient and just encouraging. And it's just been a fantastic experience. I highly, highly recommend working with them.
Most of the people who came to me and said, this is what I'm going to charge, this is what my price is, it was way too high, and they never, ever, ever, ever got a client. They never, ever, ever sold a course. They never sold a mastermind. It didn't work because there's no credibility. Credibility and pricing are connected. Credibility and pricing are connected. I can't give any advice if I've never podcasted before. If I had never done a podcast, this would be useless because I have no credibility. I have no practice. I have no experience. I have no time in the arena. I will never do a podcast on gardening. I am terrible at it. I'm the worst maybe ever of all time. I don't have any credibility. I don't have any practice, right? It's the same when it comes to coaching. It's the same. What the people aren't telling you usually. Okay, so let's tell this story quickly. There was somebody who had a call with somebody in our business, and they said, I have this journal, and it costs $30, and I want to sell, what did they say? I want to sell 80,000 of them this year, I think they said. Love it. Awesome. Great. Big goal, big, hairy, audacious goal. Awesome. And they said, well, one of the people that I look up to did it, so I can do it too. I understand what you're saying. The person that you look up to has probably been in business for 15 years, and now they're able to do it. But they didn't do it there. They didn't do it at your point in the journey. They did it later on. Just like I didn't start working with podcasters until I was 3 years in. It took me a long time to get to that place. So if you are just starting a podcast about podcasts, and I tell you, yeah, you should build this and do this and do this, you don't have the demand yet. It's different. You don't have the perception yet. You don't have the credibility yet. It's different. That's why I think in the beginning, we should optimize for momentum more than profitability. Now, I'm not saying don't make money, but I think it's important to understand that if somebody's willing to pay you $50, I think that's a really good place to start. If somebody's willing to pay $27 for a course, I think that's a really good place to start. Are you going to get rich overnight? No. But are you going to get experience and lessons and feedback and more credibility and referrals and testimonials? Yeah. And that's what you want in the beginning. You want social proof. And social proof, the best way to get it is to work with a lot of people. So that's kind of my frame on this. The reason I approach it this way is because I don't want you to think that you have to charge X amount of dollars because everybody else is or everybody is telling you to. Same with me. You don't have to listen to me. Filter everything I say through your own filter. If you think you're worth $1,000 an hour, go try to charge $1,000 an hour and see what happens. I'm all for that. If you don't get any results in 6 months, I would try lowering the price and see what happens. People always say, well, the price isn't the problem. Like you don't want to lower your price. You don't want to lower your price. You know how many people I've worked with who we have 3 packages and I would say, which of these packages works the best? And they would say this package because I can't afford the other ones. You know how many people said that? If I didn't have that package that they could afford, they wouldn't work with us. They can't. And I know, well, you got to take somebody from you can't afford it to how could you afford it. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that sales tactic. I'm not a fan of that, because most people are paying for a luxury. They're not paying for necessity. Most people do not need, quote unquote, what you're providing. If you're a podcaster, you don't need a production company. It's a luxury. You can do it yourself. Does it suck at times? Maybe. Right? Maybe it does. But it's a luxury. It's a luxury to have somebody that's able to do it for you. If you're a personal trainer, that's a luxury for somebody. Depending on who they are, where they're from, how much money, that's a luxury. Not everybody can afford somebody to help them with their fitness goals. And that's why so many people build apps and stuff like that. So understanding that a lot of things have to line up for somebody to want to work with you. A lot of things. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. But the more reps you get, the more conversations you have, the more that you talk about your products or your service, the more experience people get with it, the higher the likelihood that you're going to end up being able to get people to buy it or use it. And I just think we live in this weird time where a lot of entitled people are giving you entitled advice that's not going to help you. It's going to probably hold you back. If we think of how many people that are giving advice are the exception to the rule, I'll be very honest. My journey is very much the results not typical. Now, I would also argue that the work has not been typical either, the amount of work we've put in to get here. So that's why I'm not telling you to do things in certain ways. I think the best way is to build small, to start small, and you can raise your prices later. Last story. I was at a mastermind one time, and we got to go for free, which was nice. But I was at a mastermind one time, and at the beginning of the session, the person said, "Today we're gonna teach you all how to at least double your revenue this year." And I was like, nice. This is gonna be awesome. And they said, "Here's the trick. Take whatever you charge for whatever it is and add a 0. And I was like, that's funny. That's a good joke. Like, okay, cool. I'm excited to hear. And they're like, no, that's it. Add a 0 to your pricing. For some people, that will work because some people don't charge enough. But for most people, I would argue that that is a recipe to run all of your opportunities right out the door. There was a lady there who I had connected with who was just starting to coach. She was a divorce coach, just starting to coach. And we were outside. And I said, look, I know that sounds really good. And I know everybody up there is super successful. I said, I would not do that if I was you. You need to build confidence. You need to build momentum. You need to build belief in the fact that you can actually do this. She did. She raised her prices, and she quit her business the next year. I checked in with her, and she said, yeah, I fell victim to that, and I ended up going out of business. I know. It's dangerous. It's a very, very dangerous thing to do. I don't want that to happen to you. But what if she started saying, you know what? Everybody else in this industry charges $500 an hour. I'm going to charge $100 an hour. Will it take me 5 times the amount of clients to make the same amount of money as somebody else? Sure. But we're not comparing to them. We're comparing to how much money you need to make. And we're comparing to what it takes to grow. Charge $100. Go get 5 clients. Work with those 5 clients. Mastery. You're going to get really good at coaching. You're going to get really good at making courses. You're going to get really good at writing books if you have more feedback. Impact. You're going to help more people. And when you help people, people tell people. And then profitability. That comes last. That's the part that comes last. Because you have to get good at it and impact people long before you make money. Long before you make money. So that is, I will get off my soapbox. I hope it doesn't come off in a negative way. I don't mean it that way. I just have seen so many people with amazing ideas and big hearts and a lot of knowledge lose because of this. Yeah, it's in an ideal world, we could pick a number and we could all charge it. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. If you've ever been to a place and you say, wow, these prices are outrageous, okay, then why do you get to charge what you want if they can't charge what they want? It doesn't really work that way. All right, it doesn't really work that way. So that's my thesis on today's episode. Let's talk about pricing. I think it's better to undercharge in the beginning because that way at least you get momentum. At least you build belief. You get an understanding of how it works. You get testimonials. That's one of the best things in the world. Okay, cool. You wanna get people to talk about your coaching? Coach 5 people for free. Say at the end, all I ask is you give me an honest testimonial about what it was like to work with me. Boom. You have 5 testimonials. Done. Now you put those as the mid-tro of your podcast. You put them on your website. You send them. You put them on social media. You send them in emails. Now you have 5 testimonials, even though you've only worked with 5 people. Awesome. Cool. Love that. That's a great start. As opposed to saying, well, I charge $1,000 per call or whatever it is. Another quick story. I know I'm going over my time here, but this one, I feel like this is important. So when I first started Next Level Podcast Solutions, our production company, I started at $1,200 a month. So it was, if you were going to do 1 episode per week, you're going to do 4 episodes per month. We'll do all the audio editing. We'll do the video editing. We'll create the social media content. We'll post it on YouTube. We'll do the thumbnails. We'll do all that stuff. I'll help you launch it if you need all that stuff. $1,200 a month. That was what it was in the beginning. I got my first client. And I remember I assumed that was what we were going to do. So I ended up having a conversation with one of our mentors at the time who is very wealthy. We're talking mansion on the side of a mountain in Arizona, infinity pool overlooking a city, many millions of dollars he has. So he and I had a conversation, and I said, what you're looking for is... He was looking for something a little bit different. So I said, what you're looking for is $1,500 a month. Okay? $1,500. And he said, okay, what if we agree on $1,000 per month? I will pay you $3,000 up front, and I'll let you advertise your services on my podcast. I said, no, it's $1,500 or nothing. It ended up being nothing. And this guy never talked to me again. I think he was trying to teach me a lesson, which worked. But I just don't want that to happen to you. The opportunity I missed because of that, because I wasn't willing to take $500 less a month and then be able to advertise on his podcast, was that worth $500 a month? Yeah. The kind of people that he would have been interviewing, the people he would have connected me to, that was a huge mistake. A huge mistake. So I have made this mistake. I just don't want you to make the same one. And then we had adjusted. We adjusted from there and realized it's not sustainable for most people. Now, whether it was sustainable for him or not, that's a different conversation. But if you're a podcaster right now, seriously, think about this. Put yourself in my shoes. If you're a podcaster right now, can you afford $1,000 a month for all the audio editing, video editing, and stuff? No. Most likely you can't. If you can, awesome. Good for you. And there's people out there that charge that if that's what you're looking for. Good for you, but most people can't. I don't want your ideal client or your ideal book buyer or your ideal course taker to feel that way. I don't want them to feel that way. So then we ended up lowering and changing pricing and figuring out what's more sustainable, and we came down a lot. That's because we want to serve as many people as possible. So again, enough about me. I don't want this episode to be about me, but I have made the same mistake, and I just don't want to see you make those mistakes, because there's something about momentum. There's something about having the ability to work with more people. I would not be able to work with 56 podcasts or however many it is. I think it's 56 at this point. If we charge $20,000 a month, most of our clients would not be able to afford that. They just wouldn't. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with serving an audience that isn't high ticket. I don't know. I like it. I want to be the type of person I needed at the beginning, and that's the mission of what we're doing. So that would be the last thing, is figure out your mission. If your mission is to serve as many people as possible, it's a little bit different than maybe to make as much money as possible as quickly as possible. Those are very, very different models. All right, cool. If you're stuck on pricing and you don't hate me after today's episode, I will have my link in the show notes for a free 30-minute podcast breakthrough session. We can literally jam on this, and we can look up what do other people in your industry charge for courses, for whatever it is. All right, I know I talk a lot about coaching because I'm a coach and I work with a lot of coaches, but I know that's not how everybody's going to monetize their podcast, and not everything that you're going to be working your prices around, so we can discuss that. I'll have my link in the show notes. Also, StreamYard link for affiliate stuff, Buzzsprout link for affiliate stuff is in the show notes as well. Again, love Buzzsprout. Been using it since 2018, I think. Been using it a long time. It's a great host. Analytics are awesome. All that happy jazz. I love StreamYard. I just know it's very expensive and the prices just went up. So please do not feel any pressure to sign up because of me. Do the thing that's most sustainable for you. You know I care more about that than anything else. As always, I hope you feel good about your pricing. I hope you feel good about your services, your products. Maybe you're not there yet. Don't think that this episode does not apply to you because maybe you're going to be there eventually. And at least you can start from a place of awareness as opposed to maybe just shooting at a target that doesn't exist. So that's what I hope for you. I hope you're having a great new year. I hope if you're in the West Coast, you're safe. I know it's been mayhem out in the West Coast, Cali. I hope everybody out there is safe. I hope you're safe. I hope you're off to a good new year and all of that stuff. Keep on crushing it. Keep on podcasting, and I will talk to you all next week.